Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, I think we'll get started here. It's right at 2 o'clock. Let me see. We'll now call the meeting of the Waco MPO Policy Board of April 21st, 2022 to order at 2:01 p.m. Annette, is this meeting been posted? Yes. Yes. Are there councils that should be called into session? I don't think there's a substitute. So no, we're good. I'll welcome the guests. We provide an opportunity for the public to address the MPO Policy Board on any agenda item. Please complete a speaker's registration card with MPO staff. Speakers will be allotted one presentation at the beginning of the agenda for each agenda item the speaker wishes to address. Please note each action item will have a separate public hearing later in the agenda. Speakers have the option of addressing the board at either time, but you will only be allowed one opportunity to address the board per agenda item. For items not on today's agenda, there's a separate hearing of visitors at the end of the meeting. And then do we have any registered speakers?
Yeah.
We have none, so there being no registered speakers, we'll now move to agenda item number 3 and consider approval of the minutes of the March 17th, 2022 MPO Policy Board meeting. Copy of the minutes was provided in your meeting packet. Are there any corrections to the minutes that were submitted? There being none, the minutes are approved as presented. There are no action items today, but there are 5 discussion items, and we'll get started on those. Agenda item number 4 is an update and discussion regarding the transit fixed route realignment study. And who do we have here? I see Serena back there. Serena, you can do the presentation?
Oh, no, I was just going to introduce our
Okay.
guests. So,
Great.
Well,
Okay. Some logistics here.
sorry about that. Good afternoon. I just want to introduce our team that's conducting our fixed route realignment study. We have Ed here from ATG. We also have Stephanie from AECOM. We are in the phase 2 portion of our project and we're getting public engagement. And so we want to update you all on where the project is at this point and then our next steps in the process. If you have any questions, please make sure you let us know and we will have some contact information that you can respond to us at. We'll also have question and answer process, and then next week we'll have an additional public engagement opportunity for anyone who may want to come and participate. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Serena. Sure. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ed Elam. I'm with Alliance Transportation Group, and again, it's our pleasure to be part of a team working with you and Waco Transit on this project. I'm very bad at directions. Stephanie can tell you because I was driving around because I had the phone here, I had the hand here. So I apologize. I'll try to give you as many hand signals as I can to move the slides along, but I think we're ready to move on to our agenda for today. Again, what we want to do is give you a taste of where we are in the project. And we're actually at a phase where we're asking for the public's input on what our current alternatives are. So hopefully today, we'll tell you a little bit about what those are. We actually do have an active website, which will provide more detail on each of the alternatives. It also is a spot where folks can go in the community and actually complete a survey and give us some feedback on the alternatives. And it's also a location which we're using to promote when the next events are. Apologies that I'm not wearing a coat today. We're actually out canvassing the neighborhoods, putting out flyers and talking to business people to kind of drum up support and information for the April 28th meeting. And we're going to be continuing that effort this afternoon. Next slide, please. So again, where are we on this? Okay. We're looking at this as an opportunity to reimagine how the system is going to be looking for the first time in about 20 years. And again, part of this process is to look at connectivity, making sure that the transit that's provided is a viable lifeline to the residents to get to work, get to school, get to shop, as well as provide new opportunities for mobility for everyone across the community. It is an equity-driven process. We are looking at a variety of benchmarks across the community using known measuring tools that are acceptable to the FTA. So basically that means you're available for funding in the future and we'll have a product that actually complies with their requirements. That's very important, I know, for the MPO as well as Waco Transit. But we're also using that as an opportunity to maybe look at some service alternatives that are maybe a little different and maybe new to the region. Next slide, please. I'm gonna figure this out in a second. I apologize. I'm trying to be synchronized between the two. So again, remember, transit is opportunity. It's a chance for people to actually do something different in terms of their mobility, meeting their mobility needs and getting to parts of the community that maybe they've not been in a while, or maybe have not had access to. One of the things that's important to remember too is that WTTS is a part of a network that provides mobility across the region. So when we talk about transit, we're also talking about folks who ride bikes, because again, they can put their bikes on bus and continue on. We're also talking about demand response for people who need door-to-door service. We're also talking about coordination amongst services between the city with Baylor University and other locations across the county. So again, this is part of a network that creates movement for everybody. Next slide, please. So where are we in the process? We're about halfway to 3/4 of the way through. And I'm gonna take my bifocals off, otherwise I'm gonna say we're done with the project. Right. So we're at the point now where we need people to tell us more about what it is they're seeing and what it is we're proposing, and give us their honest feedback. We're doing this through two things. We have an ongoing survey process, which we'll talk about in a second. And again, the website has some maps that you can look at, which actually show the alternatives. What is unique about this project is that we're just asking, how can it be better? We want you to look at these alternatives, not as a comparison of one against the other, but basically these against what you currently have available in the community. Many communities of this size are taking the opportunity with COVID coming out of COVID to reset their thinking about transit. So Waco is on the edge of where most communities are at this point, and we're just trying to gather what the community thinks in terms of their priorities, which goes to the next slide. So you can see we actually have gone through and collected responses online. We have done some in-person surveys, and we have some initial results. And no surprise, most people who need transit needed to get to work. Again, the other opportunities include things that we all do on a normal daily basis. Go shopping, go to the doctor, go to school. In some cases, even go recreate or go to places that we actually spend time in as families or as individuals. One of the things we're gonna be doing is fanning out across a variety of locations to provide another post on the survey. You saw the QR code poster on the door as you came in, and if you didn't, you'll see it on your way out. To give people an opportunity, once again, to give us some final thoughts on the process. We're also going to be coming back next Thursday to do some pop-up events in Waco at the Transit Center, again, to gather input within the community as well as with transit riders. And then we've also been meeting with groups on a one-on-one basis. This morning, we gave a presentation with the chamber for the same information. And we also collected comments at that time and questions from the group assembled. And again, we'll do the same here today. Next slide. So again, the purpose of looking at transit from a market perspective is to figure out how best to pair resources with the need. One of the things we've done is look at the population to see what its needs are, look at the community surveys to figure out what it is the community identifies as a priority. And again, looking at the businesses and the employment patterns and figuring out how it all works together efficiently. One of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that we're pairing services with areas of high need, with high destination, or maybe areas that are high destinations that are basically needed by all folks in the city or in the immediate area. So one of the things we've done is rely on census data to kind of give us initial input along with a review of the survey data that's come in, as well as looking at information from Waco itself. When you go to our website, you'll see a complete explanation of the various factors we've looked at, as well as some of the maps which show you the data sets in a little more detail. So I want to talk a minute about our three scenarios. And again, the three scenarios are not to be compared against each other. They're being compared against the current service that's available. So again, we have two alternatives which consider the current BRT project. Basically, they're looking at either a complete BRT project from north to south or a partial completion up to a certain location. And we'll show you that on the map in a second. And again, part of that backbone process of having BRT is thinking about how all the other routes in the network will feed into it. Are there other services that need to be provided as well that feed into it as well, either at the main hub downtown or as part of the actual BRT corridor? And again, for those of you who are familiar with transit, understand BRT is a very high frequency service that provides high visibility and high amounts of mobility and capacity for folks to get from point A to point B. We also have another scenario which basically is wiping the slate clean. What if we have no service, and how can we just reimagine it for the benefit of the community? I'm going to walk you through each map, If we have questions, we're gonna take those today. We also have, like I said, the details on our website, and if I can't answer your question today, we'll let Serena also chime in. If we can't answer it, we'll be glad to get an answer back to you shortly. So prior to getting into the scenario process, we also talked to the people who are the eyes and ears on the street, our bus operators. We had a meeting with them to figure out, okay, where are people getting on and off? Where are the routes most utilized? Where are some routes maybe not utilized fully? Are there locations you're hearing residents talk about that maybe we need to think about going to? So again, that's a really good starting point because they're in this day to day. They're the folks that actually make the rubber hit the road, and they help us give an idea of what the community is experiencing when they get on a bus. Next slide, please. So let's talk about each scenario, and we're gonna start with 1A and 1B. And again, the only difference between the two is that 1A is the full BRT corridor. 1B is a minimal operable segment, or basically a phase of the BRT where future expansion could be applied. We also are creating 3 microtransit zones. Those of you who are familiar with Uber and Lyft, microtransit is the same principle. You use an app, call on the phone, you get a ride scheduled within a certain amount of time, and either they come to your house or they come to a predetermined meeting location. However, unlike Uber and Lyft, the microtransit is basically operating within a geo-fenced or defined boundaries. So in effect, the shaded areas, which again, apologies, I'm looking at the yellow as the shaded area, just to make sure my computer and the screen match. Basically, the buses would circulate within those areas and either take the person to the closest bus stop, or they could even take them to a destination inside of that zone. And the process would involve payment of a fare, which would be comparable to the current bus trip, so that basically you would have fare transparency across all the fixed route and microtransit zones, which actually creates more reliable service for the public. The other thing that it would do is it would provide something new to put buses into areas where maybe the current oversized 45-foot, 30-foot buses are hard to basically get through the neighborhood streets. And it makes it more of a scale that is approachable to the public. And the other thing about it too is it is accessible. So there would be wheelchair access and the same ADA accommodations as you would have on a regular bus. Next slide. Now, scenario 2, again, reimagines the entire network, but without the concept of the BRT. One of the things that's important to remember about this is if the BRT were to come back or be added to this equation, we could look at readjusting those alignments appropriately. So just saying that there's no BRT doesn't mean the BRT doesn't happen. It just means it would have to be looked at a little differently in a future refinement step. Again, you would have the same opportunities for microtransit, in this case, north and south, as opposed to including areas in the city itself. But again, the microtransit would operate the same way, internal circulation or connecting you to the closest fixed route. Next slide, please. So we're currently in the process of starting and wrapping up our public engagement phase at the same time, because again, we're having our meetings today with you and previously this morning with the chamber. Next Thursday is our rollout at the transit center, and again, our website has all the details. We also are looking at ridership forecasting, figuring out how many folks will actually be riding the service once we make the alignments and the changes that are shown on the maps. And then we'll be coming back to our steering committee with a presentation of those results. What that allows us to do is provide some information on immediate implementation needs, immediate costs, as well as potential impacts on mobility in the region. For example, are we going to pick up riders? Are we going to possibly lose riders? What do we need to be thinking about in terms of future facilities? And then finally, what we'll do is provide a detailed guide for implementation. How do we get there? What kind of grants do we need? What kind of funding do we need? And what type of sequence would we need to make the changes happen? And then we're hoping to wrap all that up by the end of June. Thanks. So again, this is just a brief overview of what we have and what we have posted. Again, my name is Ed Elam. I'm available to answer your questions. And if I don't have an answer, like I said, we'll get back to you on that. Certainly Ms. Serena in the back will be here to answer questions as well. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor to Serena if you have any other comments.
Other than just saying it's an equity-driven project that we want to make sure the community is a part of, we don't want to put out a project that's, the vision of transit, and then the people who actually have to utilize the service don't have an opportunity to give their feedback and tell us where, there's a challenge here or this direction that you're taking to be very successful in saving time in my travels. So again, all I ask is that while you may not use public transit today, give us your feedback as to what would you like us to implement that would help you or your family members use public transit. I mean, it's a great investment. I mean, it decreases congestion. I mean, it's just an opportunity to create economic development in all areas, including the county. And so please take some time, give us your feedback, and we appreciate your time today and look forward to your contributions to our project.
Thanks, Serena. Thanks, Ed. Any questions for Ed and or Serena?
As you're gathering information and collecting bodies of folks to hear from and get input from, are they, like, how much time does that take? So if you're having a community meeting at a church, how much time are we talking about?
Actually, the surveys that we're doing is more of a conversational element, so we're there for as long as they want to provide. Most folks take about 2 minutes to give us their input, but some folks they have a lot to say, so we're there to write down every comment. We typically stick around for a couple hours to listen to what people have to say, because we want to make sure that we're accessible for people to come in either on their way home from work, if it's in the evening, or if they're at the transit center during the layovers when the buses are coming through, or if they're downtown, they can come down during their lunch hour. I want to say the hours, I think, for the meeting in the 28th is 12 and 6.
Yes.
So we'll be out, in an opportunity there with staff fully badged with clipboards and everything to gather input. And plus we have some display boards and other things that people can actually engage with. If they choose they don't want to participate in a meeting, the website is a great way to do it because everything's right in front of them and they can take all the time they need to look at everything. We have a nice slider map that shows befores and afters. And again, there's a couple of email addresses there, including mine, I think, as of today, where they can actually email more extensive comments or letters or whatever. If you have a group that you would like to push the notice to, we actually have an email blast we can send you so that you can distribute it out to your constituents. We're actually encouraging that because we would like to have as broad a representation of the community as possible in the engagement process. Because again, that's something FTA is going to be looking at in the future.
What will success look like? I mean, do you have a percentage of population that you're trying to reach? I mean, what?
I can tell you based on my personal experience, success, we're pretty good right now in terms of the number of surveys, but in my mind, success is defined by making sure that those who want to have a voice have had a chance to participate. If they've not had a chance, if it's for lack of information, that's a problem, but if it's with the information in front of them and they still haven't participated, that's something also where I would like to know so that we can maybe do some things differently in the future. And I think honestly, the amount of community input that we get, the more is actually the better, at least in my opinion. Serena, I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh, I agree. And Councilman Fairfield, we met with a lot of different groups. We went out to TSDC, we spoke with the area industry leader group. I mean, again, this morning we spoke with the chamber, the county, it includes all the chambers in the county. And so we have been going out really trying to find businesses and that have stakeholders in our current system that's in place and those that may be impacted by any change. So we're really trying to engage the business community so that a lot of times they want to ask transit to move where they're at once they're, in place. And so our hope is that talk to us now, so when we make the changes, we're able to incorporate that in proactively and not reactively.
Thank you.
And then I have a question. If we send you an email blast from this morning, can you send it
I
out?
was just gonna tell you that if you provide it.
Yeah,
We also have all the information on our website already and this.
okay, super.
But if you have a blast, I'll send it.
Absolutely.
You may have been discussing, I was curious how we can get our hands on the email blast.
I'll get it.
That's what we were just talking about. So we actually sent a message out this morning.
Sweet, sounds great. And then early in the presentation, you mentioned how this connects with like bicycle commuting infrastructure and usage. I didn't really hear that in the presentation. Could you speak to that?
Sure, it's as simple as the Bike on Bus program. We're having facilities at the terminals where people can lock up their bikes and securely and basically, without getting too geeky on the comments, it's basically about how do you arrive at the bus stop, and if the bicycle is your way to pedal like that first mile to get to the bus stop or your last mile, it's part of an overall network. That's really my thinking. That was the thinking on that.
And you can also put your bike on the bus, all the vehicles have that capability, so if you are one that chooses to get to your stop and use your bike for the rest of your journey, we have that capability as well, and the vehicles will be accessible to them.
So the bus becomes that bridge between your bike beginning and end, for example.
Get that across.
Have you ever, and this is just throwing ideas in the air, you know, so if you want to get the information from people who actually use transportation, you know, because it's one thing to talk to the people the businesses and organizations that are relying on people to get there. But, you know, we want to get the information about the people who are using the bus and getting, you know, what will make their life easier. Has there ever been any consideration to offering some sort of incentive, if it's a $5 gift card to blah, 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 or you know, whatever, I mean, because you're asking for time, you're asking for information, so what's in it for them?
So what we have all of the QC codes on the buses, so the individuals that are riding the bus, you know, oftentimes our current system has a lot of time that you have to travel. And so our hope is that they will look at it and they'll gauge us. We have postings down at the transfer terminal. We're down there trying to talk to them about the changes that are coming. But you know, when you're federally funded, sometimes you have limitations on what you can do as far as incentivizing those that use your services. We don't have private funds like that. And so ours have to be laid out in those ALIs initially, Councilman Fairfield. And so we don't really have that capability, but we do have squishy buses and things like that we can give. And when kids are there, they enjoy that. So we try to post it on our social media account. We try to give away T-shirts and things like that are part of our current inventory. And so while those things may not be appealing, you know, sometimes that's what we have to dig and get creative and say, hey, we've got a basket, you know, for someone who takes the time to fill out the survey. And they like those things.
No, I mean, so it's not about money, right? So don't ever think that. I mean, people think if you're asking me for something, what do I get in return? The squishy buses are awesome, first off, and
we have some T-shirts.
you know, so, and those are things, but people like to be rewarded for their time, and I think that that's one thing. And the other part about it is at some point, somebody that's, you know, staff, interns, volunteers maybe want to get on the bus, because just because I see a QR code doesn't mean I want to do anything about it.
We do, Councilwoman Fairfield. We get on and we engage the individuals that are using our bus. Bus is not asking them to see it and do it. We get on there, we talk to them, we do on-board rides. And so oftentimes I find out all kinds of interest.
I bet you do.
And go on transit. And so I'm out there as well. So it's not just about give it to the consultants and let them run with it. They like to see me, they like to talk to me, they know who I am. And so, I mean, I think that helps get participation as well.
I think.
I just want to follow that, Councilmember Bearfield's comment about trying to mine more data from the existing users, because what struck about this one map is that we think we know where people are coming from or want to use the bus, but I'm curious about where they're going. Are they going to a job, or recreation, or church, where are they headed?
Majority of our riders now, they're either going to work, they're going to resource centers within the community, they go to the doctor, they go to the VA.
It'd be good to see all that data and just help us understand, because the other part of my comment is just, we started this process in council 4 or 5 years ago, looking at it, kind of tracking a BRT. And just in the time, that short period of time, I mean, modal technological advances have changed, you know, people use Uber, I guess maybe they're using that not long ago, but self-driving cars, electric bus efficiencies improved. More people post or during COVID were working from home, so that's going to affect maybe some of our decision making. Now, and how does that change post-pandemic, or does it change? And then just the organic growth of the city, back to my point of, we seem to have a kind of different job centers are kind of growing just in the last 5 years. So for us to put fresh eyes on this, I think it's great. And I'm looking forward to seeing the results of this process ahead. I appreciate you and your group's work on this.
Thank you so much. It's been a true team effort. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I now, with our mayor is in the building, is in the room, so I think we have to call our council.
Call meeting of the Waco City Council order at 2:26 p.m.
Great, thank you. Agenda item number 5 is the updated discussion regarding amendments to fiscal year 2022-2023 Unified Planning Work Program, that's the Public Participation Plan, the PPP, and the Waco Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the MPT, and regarding the draft fiscal year 2023-2026 Transportation Improvement Program, that's the TIP. I know there's some acronym fatigue in just that little sentence, but in business terms, I mean, it's taken me a while just to, these can get kind of confusing and second nature to some people, but it's basically a 1-year operating budget, which if you're on a board or run a company, that's something you need to look at. That's the UPWP. The 3-year plan or 4-year plan is a TIP. That's kind of the one where we prioritize the Transportation Improvement Program. And the 25-year plan is the MTP. So it always seems kind of like you're reaching in on these acronyms, but they're really an annual budget, a 3-year plan, and a 25-year plan. So I'll confuse you further with that little explanation, but go ahead, Mukesh.
That's great. Thank you.
I was gonna say that this is the portion of the meeting that's the review for the test that's coming next month or the month after that, but you get an A. So the first item is the UPWP, the budget, as we refer to it. So the MPO, this amendment is Amendment 2 to the UPWP. Staff is proposing to amend subtask 5.1, which is the Waco Transit System Fixed Route Alignment Study. That study began later than expected. So there was no money expended in fiscal year 2021. So we need to carry over unexpended funds into 2022. The overall study budget remains the same. And then also we were proposing that we add an additional $48,000 budget for summer interns. And then a snapshot of the PPP. Staff is proposing minor changes to the public participation plan, which include updating the technical advisory committee name throughout the document, and then adding the transportation planning process diagram that you've become familiar with over the last few months, and then also adding the performance target discussion. And then we're proposing to clarify meeting guidelines for work groups and executive sessions in section 4. And then the proposed clarifications in section 6 are related to the definition and use of routine policy actions and clarification regarding performance targets and the transportation system performance reports discussion. And then a snapshot of proposed amendment 3 to the MTP. Staff is proposing revisions to the long range plan to maintain consistency with the fiscal year 23-26 TIP. These include revising the definition and discussion of group projects, and will now be grouping bike ped projects, and then also revising strategy 5, which is updating the project descriptions and cost estimates to reflect project information in the draft TIP. And then also removing those I-35 breakout projects from the MTP that we talked about last month, and then adding adopted transit safety performance targets into the MTP.
Real quick, remind me why we're removing the breakout projects.
Because if you remember, they, wish Victor were here, but Stan can help us do, but they were just for those, or I don't have the MTP thing in front of me, but they were the project over at the frontage road projects, basically at Valley Mills, if you remember, so anyway, it was determined in discussions with TxDOT that those weren't going to be needed, because the whole reason why we put them in the MTP in the first place was because it was the add-on to the 4B. Do you remember? It's been a long time now. We did that, but since that was kind of a moot point, we don't really need to keep those in MTP for the TIP. So we didn't propose them for the TIP, and so we were removing them from the MTP for consistency. So if when we revisit that, which would be the 4C phase at some point in the future, then that would take care of those
Got
those projects.
Thank you.
Did that help?
Yep.
It's hard to
That's what-
remember.
that's what I
because
figured. It was, what I was.
Kind of have to dust that one off a little bit, right?
Yeah.
All right, and then next is the draft transportation improvement program for 2023 through 2026. And just a reminder, the TIP identifies transportation projects and strategies from the long-range plan that will be programmed or phased for implementation over the next 4 years. So that basically means that necessary environmental and engineering studies and acquisition of needed right-of-way can begin, followed by project construction. So we're proposing to program the engineering phase for 10 highway projects, the right-of-way phase for 3, and the construction phase for 1 project, and then include programming for the maintenance and operations of the transit system. And construction phase for the 1 project is those for 298 at US 84 for Franklin and New Road intersection. And then also we were proposing to revise the definition and discussion of the 3 projects to be consistent with the MTP. So that's a snapshot of those. The public comment period began earlier this month for the amendments and for the draft TIP, and will conclude on May 8th for the TIP and the UPWP and MTP amendments. And the comment period for the PPP or the Public Participation Plan amendment will be open through June 2nd. Public meetings were conducted on Monday, April 11th, and we received no public comments during those meetings. On May 19th, which is the next policy board meeting, staff will brief you on any feedback we've received at that point and on any recommendations from the TAC regarding these amendments. And then a public hearing will be held during the policy board meeting, and the policy board will consider adoption at that time. Are there any questions?
Questions of staff. Just as a reminder that at the next meeting, we will be considering all of these for adoption, and what means that we will have formal vote. And so it will be absolutely necessary that we have a quorum. I just wanted to make sure that we're all aware.
Yeah, this summary that Annette just went through is kind of a culmination of the last 2 or 3 meetings we've had, formalizing all the discussion. So I don't think there was any new ground, and there was a controversy, but there was a lot of discussion on some of these issues previously. We worked to kind of get all that lined up. I appreciate that. And as Dr. Kumar said, we'll be voting on this in May. Anything else on that discussion? If not, we'll move on to agenda item 6, update and discussion from the strategic planning work group. And we have Bo Thomas, who's religiously attended every working group meeting so far, and will give us an update on it.
But I sat in the back row. Know that. I have four total slides for our update today. Feeling kind of like Clayton Zaka now. Anyway, I think the last time that I gave you an update, basically this first paragraph that you see up here is kind of where we started and where we were at. We had our first meeting on Friday, March 4th. That work group now has met 3 times so far. We're trying to have 8 bi-weekly meetings between March and June. Each month, a member of that committee, me representing the policy board, will be here to give you an update at these meetings, and then for the technical advisory committee, Zane Dunham will be doing likewise. The items that we're discussing and kind of in the process of looking at, it's kind of a lot of sausage making, if you will. It's kind of not too pretty, but we kind of hope that the end product comes out all right. But some of the things that we're discussing, we are discussing 5-year strategic plan with the advent that we'll be going to a TMA designation, or a transportation management area designation. And so we kind of had to try to figure out at a meeting, what does that mean? I mean, we're all kind of, what does it mean? Well, what it means is that this MPO has been focused, project specific. and working on projects. Now we kind of got to broaden those blinders a little bit, and we've got to begin looking at things from what Mukesh tells me is a context-sensitive mobility planning effort. Meaning it is going to encompass more forms of transportation than just roadways, potentially. The people that have been kind of helping facilitate this along the way have been the Texas Transportation Institute, and they've been a savior because they give us a lot of language, a lot of ideas, and a lot of things to think about. And one of those things that really came first and foremost up front was, as we sit today as an MPO, as we move forward potentially in the future as a transportation management area TMA, what role will this organization play as a regional convener or facilitator in the area with the people that are involved? And then does it mean that those people that are involved, are they just the folks that you see on the policy board, or is it beyond that? And if we go to the next slide, we really start talking about what our regional identity is. This has been called the Waco MPO, the Waco Metropolitan Planning Organization. I think we were kicking around at the last meeting. We were talking about the Greater Hewitt Transportation. No, I'm just teasing about that. But we did talk about just the name. Well, I mean, well, what are we calling ourselves? We talked about that. We've begun talking about our partners. Who are our partners? Are they just Federal Highway System? Is it just TxDOT? Or is it beyond that? Who might some of our regional partners be? Who are some potential partners? Our chambers of commerce potential partners, our foundations potential partners. What about our ISDs? What about our educational institutions? Are they partners involved in this organization? Economic development corporations in the area, should they be partners along with this? So we think we have somewhat of an achievement framework that we're in, talking about some core responsibilities, some innovative opportunities for growth and improvement in those core responsibilities, as well as some visionary opportunities. I think the thing that this probably most important to this group is whatever this committee comes up with and whatever we concoct, if you will, we bring it back to the policy board for your input, for your modification, for your alteration, your approval, and so on. And in kind of a summary of what we're doing, this is it. And this is kind of what our time frame is, and kind of how we're moving through our next meetings in over the next little over 60 days. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or probably better yet, direct them to Kesh.
Any questions of Bo? I serve on this committee along with Zane and Lorraine Dupuy and who's turned maybe Amy. Yeah, and we've got help from the Texas Transportation Institute, as both mentioned. And just knowing that TMA designation is coming up, that we want to be kind of shaped up for that designation. And really, it's kind of a reflective process, as Bo said, and kind of maybe take a fresh look at what we are, what we've been, what we want to be as we continue to grow here in Central Texas. So, Bo, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item on the next item, number 7, update and discussion on adopted TAC bylaws and next steps. Staff?
Yeah, so 2 meetings ago, we had adopted a formal set of bylaws for our technical advisory committee, and based on that, all members of the technical advisory committee existed before who are no longer part of it. They have all been notified, and we have a few vacancies. We are expecting to hold an election at the next meeting in May. And so it is quite important that all the vacancies we have on the TAC, that it is taken care of beforehand. And at the same time, we have had very encouraging amount of interest to serve on different work groups. And until now, work groups have been used on an ad hoc basis whenever we needed them, but that's one of the really important part of the work that an MPO does that is typically not visible to policy board. But what they do is that work groups, their role is often to come up with different ideas, bring new information that will not reach the technical advisory committee on its own, and make sure that all of those get considered into the not only project development process, but also in whichever planning document that we are producing. And so we have had good bit of interest so far, and we expect to get all the 4 work groups that we have at the moment activated as soon as possible, so that they can start providing input to TAC, so that TAC can then start making recommendations to the policy board. So at this point in time, this is the current membership, and as you can notice that right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vacancies total. We are still waiting for the utilities representative from City of Waco. Bo is going to recommend a person for the City of Hewitt. For City of Lakeview, we just talked before, and Zane would work through Jeff Felton to get the Small Cities North vacancy. And we are still taking nominations for Citizens Participation Work Group, because that work group is not fully functional at this point in time. And the moment it becomes functional, the chair of that work group automatically becomes the member of the TAC. And so this is the status at this point in time. Any question about where we are moving with TAC, so that I can answer it, or if you have any suggestion on how could we, because the amount of discussion we have had at TAC, some of you are already familiar with it, has been very illuminating and very wide-ranging, and it is very encouraging in that sense. And we expect to make the TAC even more effective than what it has so far.
Dr. Kumar, is there any particular skill set that we're looking for the citizen participation work group?
Basically, someone who is really plugged into the different citizens groups. Yes, that is the most important role, because at the TAC, generally TAC, or as you can see from the listing here itself, that it is quite technical heavy. And so it is, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that the person who represents or heads the citizen participation work group is a direct voting member in the TAC itself.
Any other questions on that? I think that was another catch that Dr. Kumar saw that we didn't have any bylaws at TAC. So putting those together and kind of getting this organized and make sure we have the right representation on there. We needed to get there. I appreciate the doctor's work on that. We will now go on to item 8, discussion and updates from the Texas Department of Transportation regarding significant highway construction within the Waco metropolitan area.
Jeff. Thank you. Go ahead and go through our projects that we've got going on actively. So I'll start here with the Waco 88 project on Waco Drive. The limits of this one are from Clifton Street near I-35 all the way back down to Home Depot at Center Point. It's a pretty substantial sidewalk project. I think it's full width sidewalks, 6-foot sidewalks from the full limits of the job, both sides of the road. That's going to include curb ramps, ADA accessible ramps for that, crosswalks, and push buttons, and also include updating all the signals at every intersection between start to finish of this project. Making good progress so far. Contractor's done all the signal boring work, and they've done all the signal shaft foundations. They're wrapping that up on the Home Depot end, and then making good progress with the sidewalk work itself, going from the Clifton Street side back towards Center Point. Next one we have is another 88 project at 18th Street. This one's limits are from Waco Drive back to LaSalle. They've started on the Waco drive-in and working their way towards the solve, same type of scope as the other project, minus the signal work. Putting full width sidewalks at pedestrian access, that type of thing, crosswalks. So we're making good progress there. I believe they're almost about halfway between Waco Drive and I-35 currently. Next project, FN 185, is out west of Crawford. It's a widening project, add additional pavement width and shoulders. It's making pretty good progress there. They've got the widening performed and they're moving forward with hot mix starting this week. We'll be doing that, wrapping up that work for the rest of the summer. And then towards the end of the summer, they should have this project completed. State Highway 31 overpasses. This is over at 939. State Highway 31, making good progress there. I believe they've completed the eastbound bridge there at this point, and they are now working on the westbound bridge, doing a lot of pavement work on the approaches there, getting that tied in, so making good progress. FN 2113, I know you was excited about this one. This one should be starting up next week. We'll start with this.
Great of you is exciting.
The great of you. Yes. Limits of this one are, this will be a roadway widening project. Limits from Sun Valley back to Hewitt Drive. We'll be adding 10-foot shoulders and a 3-lane section, so we'll have a continuous left turn lane all the way through. And then we're taking a lot of the open ditch drainage, converting it to more curb and gutter section underground, curb inlet type drainage there. So making good, we'll get that one started next week. There will be some significant impact to traffic configuration there. We'll be tightening the lanes down to 10-foot lanes that would confined by a low profile barrier. But that work will start with the restriping on Monday, and then the barrier will be starting to set probably about Wednesday. We'll start setting that. So looking forward to that project. Going to go on to I-35 here. Again, contractor continues to make good progress here. I've got some aerials we'll go through at the end to kind of show the progress there, but some metrics here. The milestone B1, the fourth milestone, which is the completion of the southbound main lanes. The contractor had 443 days to complete that. They finished it in 381. We're now currently in milestone 2, B2, northbound main lanes. They're making good progress there. Currently charged 310 days out of the 485. Sorry if I get those numbers wrong, it's a little far away. But they're making good progress on that. As far as overall completion milestone BT, contractor bid 1,150 days, currently charged 866. So still ahead of schedule there. As far as our current schedule, looking to have everything opened up and full traffic configuration by the end of this year. So substantial progress there, they're making good headway. State Highway 6 multi-mall started this project a few months ago. Contractor's been focused a lot at the Bagby U-turn bridges. They've got the substructure built on both bridge structures there. They've got the beams set. We're looking at pouring the decks on both those bridges next week. If everything progresses like we have it scheduled, they should have those new U-turn bridges open by the end of May. So that'll be a good addition to alleviate some of the traffic flow that we've seen in that area. Currently, we've got Beverly closed, the U-turn at Beverly closed down there in between Bagby and 84. They're working on getting the retaining walls constructed there to put the new continuous overpasses on the frontage road, both eastbound and westbound. Those are what we'll see first, and then once they get those complete, they'll move on to the railroad crossing closest to 84 and do the same work there. So those U-turns at Beverly, both eastbound and westbound and westbound to eastbound, will remain closed for the duration of the summer while they get that work completed. Okay, let's go over so I can see a little bit better. So here's the aerials for I-35. This is a shot looking south, back towards 17th, 18th Street. As you can see, we've got traffic on the southbound main lanes, the newly constructed southbound main lanes. The wide open section there is what our new pavement looks like for the northbound. So we've got a little bit of tie-in work for the ramp valves that we've got to complete there. The south section should be getting pretty close to wrapped up. Here's an aerial shot looking west at 11th and 12th Street, the new overpass there. As you remember, before construction, 11th and 12th Street went over I-35. We've flipped that stack now, so I-35 goes over 11th and 12th. The black section you see there is the outline for the new 11th and 12th Street section. That's the asphalt that goes directly into the concrete pavement. They'll come in and put the concrete on, get that paved hopefully in the next couple months or so to get that access tied back in and connected. Here's a shot looking, this is looking south back towards 11th and 12th Street from 4th and 5th. As you can see, that's a better look at what our completed section will look like. They've got a lot of that, most of that northbound main tied in there, so making good progress. This is looking towards 4th and 5th from the south and north. That white strip in the middle there is a new concrete pave on the northbound main lanes. The black on either side is what they have left to pave. This is the consistent thing we have remaining is a lot of northbound main lane paving, getting those tied in between the bridge structures. So they've got crews in working on that. They're hitting paving full time. So you'll see that come together pretty quickly. Here's an aerial looking west. CVS is the top right for reference at 4th and 5th Street. As you can see, the 4th Street at the bottom right of your screen there is that's all paved. They've got that tied in. You can see currently where 5th Street comes across and comes in at that angle. Once that's complete, we'll have that realigned with what you see at the top left of your screen and on the other side of the X on the tire mark there. So that'll be more, we're going to line that up a little straighter when that intersection's opened up. They're making good progress there. Hopefully in a couple of months, we have that intersection tied in its new configuration. Here's looking north towards University Park from 4th and 5th Street. Again, same thing. You've got the bridge structure is complete. We just need to tie in the northbound main lane paving on each end of the bridge. I'm sorry, go back one more. Okay. So right here, you may remember on the front end road, we had that pretty good bump right there after the 4th Street intersection. We've actually got that underground bore completed and tied over, so they've now removed that, so we won't have a roller coaster on that northbound frontage road anymore. So we're excited about that one. Here's looking down at the Brazos River Bridge. They've got that deck completed since this picture's been taken. There's some minor touch-ups there, and then we'll have that one's ready to go. Here's looking north at MLK. A couple of weeks ago, we just opened up this new on-ramp northbound and closed the 77 exit ramp so we could get those leave outs tied in and paid. This on-ramp will be the new permanent on-ramp, so it's tied into new paving there. Again, some minor tie-in work between that on-ramp and the north part of the Brazos River Bridges there, and that section should be complete. Here's looking back south towards MLK, the same one we looked at. Here's looking directly over MLK. You can see the black areas with the outlines for the new U-turns underneath that. The contractor actually has steel tied there. I believe we've already started paving those U-turns, so we hope to look to have those tied in soon as well, and working towards getting that intersection open back up to full configuration so traffic will flow a little better through that intersection. Here's a look at the railroad bridge. Bridge is complete. We've got the northbound main lane paving tied in on both ends, so that one's looking pretty good. Here's Forest Street. You can see the better look at kind of the completed section there of the Forest Street work we did at the previous I-35 project. You can see our fresh new northbound main lanes pavement. I believe they just paved that in this picture. This is probably where we have some more substantial remaining work left here at 77. As you can see, we still need to get some of the pavement tied in on both sides of 77 and the approach on the south side to that 77 bridge. Since this picture was taken, we've actually completed most of the new 77 bridge deck northbound. I think they're doing the final tie-in by the end of this week. We should have that bridge deck completed. Once that bridge deck is completed, we will have all the structures on this project complete, and all we have left is main lane paving. I think we're looking at probably another month or so, and hopefully have that cross traffic on 77 tied back up on the new lanes there. And then, again, that's going to be more of a conventional signalized intersection as opposed to what it was before, that 3-level.
When do you think it'll be totally complete?
At 77?
Yes, sir.
We're hoping for a month. We're working through a few issues on how to get the existing pavement from the frontage roads onto the new main lane pavement. Once we get those worked out, they can start tying that in. So we're hoping about a month or so.
Okay.
And then that was the last picture. There was looking back south. You can see. Sorry, go back one more. You can see that big section of black right there is the bond break underneath the concrete pavement. You can see all that's paved and ready to go. They're putting steel on and getting ready to pave that one soon as well. Here's looking north, Collins Street Bakery on the right side for reference. This is a northbound temporary exit to 84. We will be closing this exit next week and switching it out and opening up the northbound permanent exit 277. So access to 84 going forward for the next several months will be 77 northbound. You have a question? Okay, sorry.
No, I
So-
was just working that out in my head.
And we'll work with our public information officer, Jake, to make sure he gets it released out, when we have the final date set, when we're making that switch. That way everyone can be, totally aware of it, but there, once we switch that ramp, that'll allow them, as you can see, tie in that gap we have, we left out for the ramp to get those main lane pavements done. Here's looking north towards, Barron Circle, I believe, I'm sorry, this is 84. Again, the same thing, we've got bridge structures complete, it's gonna get the northbound main lane pavement tied in, it's getting pretty close to ready to go. Here's looking north towards Barron, you can see, since we met last month, we've done a traffic switch, we've actually put, north of 84, we put northbound main lane traffic on the new northbound main lanes. There's still a little bit of work left to portion that center median barrier between Barron's and the 340. Once they get that forward, we hope to open the northbound main lanes up to 3-lane section and have more room there. So that should be coming up soon. And here's a good picture looking back south of Barron's. Kind of gives you a good idea of what the final product's going to look like. A lot of these intersections, if they have the approaches tied in with the structures. I think right here we've got a little bit of work left in that southeast corner, the left side of your screen there to tie in Barron's the new width, but this is getting close as well. And that's what I've got. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, is there any, are there any plans in the works to provide pedestrian infrastructure for greater students?
Correct, yeah. Yes, this project includes full green access, ADA compliant upgrades. All intersections will have curb ramps, crosswalks, signalized intersections, and along with pedestrian push buttons for those access. The frontage roads, northbound frontage road and southbound frontage road throughout the project has an extended width on the right turn lane to allow it's a shared use path to allow for bicycles and vehicles to allow for that. But yes, this whole corridor will be fully ADA compliant.
And everything goes under, is there anything that goes over?
I-35 goes over on all of them.
I mean,
Pedestrian.
pedestrian walkers.
Oh, no, ma'am, that won't be going back.
I'm just curious why.
So when we looked into that at the beginning, I think when we upgrade the 4th and 5th and the 11th and 12th Street facilities with the full ADA compliance, by the time to make a new bridge go up and over the I-35, you're going probably, it's not the same, it's a longer distance to go up and over, to get up and over the interstate before it'd be closer to go to 4th Street or 11th and 12th Street. So it's actually shorter distance to go to the intersections now.
What is the lighting gonna be like under there?
So the project has full underpass lighting. I know at 4th and 5th Street, there's a lot of City Waco participate in some decorative lighting that they're currently working on, getting to us now. That'll be tied in. Same thing at the Brazos River. There'll be underpass lighting there that lights that area for the sidewalks. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? I'm always, every time this presentation, every month, I'm always impressed by the construction timeline compression. It seems like it keeps coming in, which is fantastic. And you don't have to answer this question, Dave, but as we plan for bigger projects like this, would you attribute that to like the contractor or the fact that the supply chains have stayed open during the pandemic, or the incentive program we put in there, or the just better pre-planning, or Stan, a couple minutes on that?
I think earlier in the presentation, Jeff went over the 3 major phases, B1, B2, and BT. Each of those have it's plus or minus, but each of those have about a $5 million bonus that the contractor can max out. He's already maxed out the first one. He's on pace to max out the other 2. So the way we incentivize the contract, what I've been telling folks is we went fishing, we knew what we wanted to fish for, and we caught a fish that we wanted, which was a contractor that knows how to execute. Not necessarily this one, but they were the low bidder. But the incentives are really what put us in that position where it's integrally tied to the schedule and the completion. We get that during bid time, but then he has to go out and earn the incentive as well, because there are disincentives if he doesn't execute properly. So I think the way we set that contract up, we've learned from previous projects that when you have something of this magnitude and so important to the community, that it's worth still pay me now or pay me later. If we didn't put the incentives in there, make them earn them, we end up paying them later with claims or something like that. And it kind of puts them on our side of the table to solve problems as we move through the project. I think that that's really been the success story that we're seeing unfold.
Well, and then when you put that in the context of that incentive, the positive ripple effect, really exponential of the project being done early. Now everything opens back up to the economics, downtown businesses. I just think the way this has worked has been
I
fantastic.
don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but our TxDOT's planned duration for this project. Do you remember what our plan was on the, what our max?
I don't remember what it went in. I know it was about a 4-year,
We were
5-year project.
4 years at bid time, they cut that down, and right now they're ahead of their own schedule, so.
Great. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anywhere where it's have y'all done like a breakdown on like the financing side of all of this, like how it's being funded, like how much of this is taxpayers are funding, or is that like visible to her? There's not very much visibility around. I feel like most we wake up and it's just like, let's guess which road is closed today, but we don't really know very much what's going on or like the finances behind it either. So there's some of those are pretty big price tags on.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's all public information. Do we have is it a registered speaker? You're not. Could you state your name and your address? I think we.
Because you came in late, so in this process, we need you to register. So we catch you.
Just say your name and address.
Just, yeah, you can keep talking. I just want to make sure we get it right. Yeah, I appreciate your feedback.
Is it in a public forum, open meeting, does that say your name?
I'm Tiffany Owens. I live in Mara, mostly a biker, but until I come to meetings like this, I brought up this car. But yeah, so I was just curious.
To respond to your question about the financing, you get with either Jeff or I later, it's everything goes public record. We have a financial plan that we provide to HWA for this, because 90% of this is federally funded. We have a total financial plan, everything. Funding is totally available. You know, with us, we can get. You have to do a public information request, but that's standard business for us. We can get.
I'll give it to Jeff there.
Appreciate the questions. Any other questions? The next item is item 9, the director's report. Dr. Kumar.
Thank you.
So April is the distracted driving awareness month. And you may have noticed that there has been a lot of press releases and posters pasted all over where you see that how this is my favorite one, because it really is impossible for any of us to be driving and doing absolutely anything else. But we tend to do that. In fact, most of us tend to do that. One of the things I would strongly encourage all of us to do, especially each one of you who represents a city, it is important to get some of these information out, not only to the city employees, because they often are in a hurry to get the job done, and it is important for them to stay safe in the process. And what we have done is we have decided to put some of the resources that National Safety Council has put out on our website, so that so you can access all of them either through our website, or you can also get to the National Safety Council. They have a bunch of posters and press releases and ideas on how to implement some of these. At the MPO, we are very seriously considering how do we go about it in a more comprehensive way, because if you recall 2 or 3 meetings ago, actually, we adopted the TxDOT's Vision Zero targets. What that means is that we also have to implement some of the ideas. And TxDOT has a safety task force that is working right now to try to figure out what some of the sets of recommendations are going to be for project design and project phase and kind of public relation campaign that we need to make. And so we'll keep you updated on that as well. But let's use this April Awareness Month because this is quite important. Significant number of terrible crashes often do happen because some of us are distracted. And that's roughly about 1/3 of the story about why crashes happen. And since we know, if you recall that two meetings ago when we were discussing the crash numbers for McLennan County also, that has gone up. And as the VMT has gone up, the total numbers have gone up as well. So it is quite important that we are going to take it seriously, and over the next year or two, we will figure out step by step all the things that we can do in the process. Just a reminder, so May 19th is our next meeting at the same location. We will be on our agenda, we will have the adoption of GPWP, PPP, MTP amendments, and we will also have the adoption of the 23-26 TIP. We'll have an update, the construction update, and any other item that you might like to be on the agenda, please let me know now, or you can also email me and we can put it on the agenda.
Any questions on the director's report? Seeing none, does anyone have, as Dr. Kumar said, does anyone have an agenda item they'd like considered for a future meeting? None, and the next MPO Policy Board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May 19th at 2 o'clock. We'll be talking about the adoption of the amendments of the PWP, PPP, and the MTP, and the adoption of the TIP, and also the updated discussion of MPO strategic planning and the TxDOT construction update. Item 10 is the hearing of visitors, and at this time we provide an opportunity for the public to address the MPO Policy Board on any item of MPO business not identified in the agenda. And we'll open a hearing of the visitors at 3:07. Do we have any registration cards for items not on the agenda? Good. And we got Tiffany registered in. I appreciate your feedback. That's great. We will now close the hearing of visitors at 3:08. And item 11 is adjournment. There being no further business, we adjourn the meeting at 3:08. Thank you.